Can the New York Giants get this derailed franchise back on track within the next year or two? And is Bill Belichick part of the answer? We'll cover all that and then some coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all my written work. And as always, welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, to my everydayers, to my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Giants podcast part of your day. And today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Giant fans, Thursday, the Giants and Cowboys down in Big D, or actually in Arlington, Texas. So that game we'll end up talking about on Thursday when we do our crossover. But so on today's show, we're going to take a look at reasons why this Giants team within the next year or two, that why they have reasons to hope. Then we'll take a look at some of their needs. And I'm not talking about personnel needs per se. I'm trying to think outside the box a little bit in terms of bigger picture. And then do they need the GOAT? The GOAT, of course, being Bill Belichick. What are the pros and cons? And would they go for Bill Belichick if they fire Brian Daboll? So we'll talk about all that on today's Locked On Giants podcast. All right. Now, look, the last couple of weeks, heck, the whole season has just been one big emotional drain. It just really has. It's been a lot of disappointment, not a lot to smile about, a lot of questions, a lot of disappointments. You know, I hear from you guys and gals all the time about how see you next year, see you during the draft. I feel for the fans, okay? You guys deserve so much better. You really do. You deserve a winning team, or at least a competitive team. And we just have not seen that. But I'm here, because I try to be optimistic when I can while also being realistic. And I'm here to tell you that I think there are some reasons to hope that maybe this franchise in a year or two will start to really put it together. Okay, so let's start off with the offense. Now, if you've listened to me every day, if you're one of my everydayers, you know that I have always said when it comes to a franchise quarterback, you want to make sure that the offense is in place. And by that, I am talking about the personnel to start. So do you have a good offensive line? Do you have a number one receiver and a good number two and a number three receiver? Do you have, a decent running game? Do you have, tight ends who can contribute? So all that is what you want to have in place for when you bring in a young quarterback. Well, folks, I think we could probably say that the Giants do have all that in place. Now, we'll talk about scheme in the next segment because I know that's a very big part of it, but I'm talking about in terms of personnel. It is much easier to bring a single person, a quarterback, into a system or a personnel group, rather, that's already in place versus, now you bring in the rookie quarterback and now you got to build around him, right? The Giants did that with Eli, if you remember, when they drafted him. They did not do that for Daniel Jones, which is a big reason, or one of the reasons why Daniel Jones did not work out here. And now they have it set up for whoever their next quarterback's going to be, whether it be Sanders or Milroe or Cam Ward or Carson Beck, whoever it is. So that being said, the Giants, the only other thing they need to add to this personnel group is their 2025 version of Kurt Warner, who, if for those of you who don't remember, back in 2004 when the Giants got Eli Manning, they had Kurt Warner to keep the seat warm for him. And then, while Kurt was playing games and winning games for them. Eli was developing behind the scenes, and then they turned the reins over to Eli, and the rest was history, as they say. So, that's what the Giants really need. And, I don't know who that guy is, but that's what I see as one of the biggest needs for the Giants, or one of the things that they're missing, I should say, in terms of the offense being set up for the rookie quarterback. Okay. Defensively, the Giants, you can say, are pretty solid right up the middle, which is usually, where you want to have your strongest players. So they've got Dexter Lawrence up front, Bobby Okereke inside linebacker, Tyler Nubin at safety. Not a bad, 1, 2, 3 punch. Okay. On the edges, obviously, they got Thibodeau and Burns. Thibodeau, you know, the drop off this year because of the injury, but still an ascending player. Burns might not have the numbers that you maybe thought he would have, but he also hasn't been totally invisible. So the Giants also have a good young slot cornerback in Tyler Nubin. I think if they solidify the situation on the perimeter cornerbacks, decide what they're going to do with Jason Pinnock. Do they bring him back or upgrade? Do they bring back Micah McFadden? And obviously get some more help along Dexter's on either side of Dexter Lawrence. They're in pretty good shape personnel wise. All right. So that all said, what is it that the Giants need? All right. They have, some promising personnel. The foundation is pretty much in place. There's obviously still some pieces they have to add. We've talked about it on this show before: quarterback, interior defensive line, cornerback. We've talked about adding another receiver, maybe another edge rusher, since they probably will not bring back Azeez Ojulari, who, by the way, is on IR again, third year in a row. So what do they need? Now, I'm going to look in this next segment, I'm going to look at bigger picture items as opposed to reiterating, the personnel and going into that explanation again. So don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. And right now, Prize Picks has a special Thanksgiving free square. Dolphins receiver Tyreek Hill only needs to receive half a receiving yard. That's right, half a receiving yard for the projection to hit. And if you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. You can get your earnings within as little as 15 minutes. And Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Download the app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Hey, Giant fans, are you struggling to find the perfect gift during the holidays? We've got the perfect gift idea for you. Skylight Frame is a touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. You can even invite your friends and family to easily share photos with the free Skylight mobile app or email with no account or subscription required. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a friend across the country, and it's the fastest and easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. Photos are displayed in high definition resolution, and you can choose from 5 different frame styles and 2 sizes: the original 10-inch or the larger 15-inch gallery frame. It's a great private way to share photos without posting it to the world or having to print and store hard copies. We're so confident that you're going to love Skylight, but if you don't, they offer free returns within 120 days of purchase. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's skylightframe.com/lockedonNFL. Again, get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/lockedonNFL. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I am your host, Patricia Traina, and we are now going to take a look at what the Giants need. And I'm not talking strictly personnel. I'm talking bigger picture here. Some things that we really, I don't think a lot of people are talking about, but which are very important. But before I get into that, just real quick, tomorrow we will have a show for you on Thanksgiving. It will be our crossover show, getting you ready for the Thanksgiving game between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. So if you guys are planning on watching that game, and I think a lot of you probably are because, let's face it, this is what we do at this time of year. But if you are planning to watch it, do check out the crossover show with Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys and myself. All right. What do the Giants need to get this train back on the track, so to speak? All right, I'm going to think outside the box here. The first thing they need to do is, in my opinion, they need to get rid of Shane Bowen. Now, nothing personal against Shane Bowen. I think he's, got credentials as a defensive coordinator. I think he can be a good one. But here's the problem, the mistake, if you will, that I think the Giants made when they hired him. You look at the personnel they had, and that personnel was a little better suited for the type of scheme that Wink Martindale ran. Okay, case in point, you saw promise from Deonte Banks, the cornerback. You saw Bobby Okereke look like an absolute terror out there with tackles galore. That was because, the defensive system that Martindale ran was a little different. And also remember that Joe Schoen basically brought in players to meet what Wink Martindale was looking for. So now you bring in Shane Bowen, who is the complete opposite of Wink Martindale as far as the scheme he runs. And all these players that were basically, acquired for Wink's defense, now some of them are struggling. Has Bobby Okereke made very many, impact plays? Deonte Banks, you ask him to play zone, and he's absolutely lost doing so. So, look, it's a lot easier to replace the coordinator than it is, 11 guys on defense or however many guys you need for the personnel packages. Oh, by the way, they still haven't really found a fit for Isaiah Simmons. Whereas last year or under Wink Martindale, sometimes they used him as a spy. So they really need to get a guy who can either adapt, his system and his philosophies to the personnel that's already there, or just, again, you're going to have to start from scratch and build that defense all over again. And who has time to do that? So, I think back to when they were trying to hire a defensive coordinator. Do you remember how many guys the Giants interviewed? It was a lot, as I recall. I want to say it was at least 6 different guys they were linked to. So that to me told me, maybe in retrospect, they weren't sure what they wanted, or maybe they were, who had the best, sales pitch, whatever. But this relationship with Shane Bowen, and again, I'm sure he could be a good defensive coordinator with the right personnel, but it's just not working here. And, look at the run defense, which has just been terrible. I mean, probably the worst I've seen it. And this is with Dexter Lawrence in the lineup too. Okay. Like I said, look at, the struggles of Deonte Banks. Was he that bad in college? I don't think he was. But then again, in college, he was more of a press man guy. I mentioned Bobby Okereke. Bobby's a lot better than what we have seen this year from him. He didn't suddenly just fall off a cliff because, he got lazy or anything like that. I think it's because of the system. So match the coordinator with the personnel you have, or at the very least, get a coordinator in here who can adapt. And that's something that I don't really think the Giants did a good job of this past off season. and why I think Shane Bowen, by the way, is going to be one and done. All right. The other thing that they need, the correct quarterback, head coach, and offensive coordinator combination. All right. Now, I think Brian Daboll is going to be back next year. Although, if they continue to slide down the drain, I become less and less certain. A couple weeks ago, I probably would have said Daboll had a 90 to 95 chance of returning. Now I'm not thinking that high. I'm thinking it's closer to maybe 60%, given what transpired the last couple weeks. So you want to make sure that the quarterback, head coach, and offensive coordinator combo is right. Now, here's the thing that the Giants need to decide. Do they keep Daboll and say, okay, you know what, Brian? You're telling us that the reason why the offense was so bad was because of the quarterback. So we'll let you pick the next quarterback to groom, but you better groom him because if you don't, you're out. Well, what happens then if he's out? What did Brian Daboll buy himself? Another year at the best? So I'm a little leery with regards to, should Daboll be the guy to help pick the quarterback? But that said, if they do, what I would like to see is Daboll turn the play calling over to a good offensive coordinator. Now, I do believe Mike Kafka is going to leave after this year. I suspect if that happens and Daboll is back, your new offensive coordinator is going to be Shea Tierney, currently the quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator. He might do a good job. He might not. I would say at this point, look, there's been so many instances where the Giants have gone with first timers, first timer GM, first timer head coach. Shea Tierney, I don't think has ever been an offensive coordinator, certainly not at the NFL level. So if he were to become the OC, he would be a first timer. Mike Kafka was a first timer. Maybe it's time you get some guys who have done this before, the roles that you're asking them to play. Maybe that would help, you think? I don't know. I would think it would. So, you've got to get that, obviously. The other thing that I think the Giants maybe want to do, and we learned this when we watched Hard Knocks. We saw how Joe Schoen had a bunch of people that would gather in his office to give their opinions. And my gosh, I hate like heck to say this because it's been said before. Michael Lombardi pointed this out, and 9 times out of 10, I disagree with everything Michael Lombardi says. This one time, I think I'm going to agree with him in that you don't need 50 million people contributing to a decision-making process. Structure it if you have to, or pick maybe, a small handful. You could ask 50 different people their opinion about a topic, and you will get 50 different opinions. And that just muddles the whole picture. And again, I get it. Joe Schoen is still a relatively new GM. I do think he's back. But I think at this point, maybe cut down on some of the decision makers that are feeding you, their thoughts and just, start to think independently, just streamline it a little bit because right now the system they've got going, I'm not so sure it's working. It's certainly not working in the results, right? So that's what I would do. Now, speaking of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, should the Giants bring the GOAT home? I know that's a very popular question and a very popular wish of Giant fans, but we will talk about that right after this. Hey, Giant fans, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more all on the very same page where you place your bets. Think the Giants are going to upset the Dallas Cowboys who haven't won at home this season? Place your bet. Why not? FanDuel's got loads of odds, not just on the money line and the spread, but also on who scores the first touchdown, who has the first turnover, you name it, they've got it. So many options, so many ways that you can win. So what are you waiting for, Giant fans? Go visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Get your $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, that website is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And again, don't forget, tomorrow there is a Locked On Giants podcast. It will be crossover Thursday. Marcus Mosier of Locked On Cowboys and I sat and we kind of went back and forth. It was kind of a therapy session for both of us because both of our teams are just not doing well, although the Cowboys have it a little bit better than the Giants. So yeah, it was kind of a therapy session. Hope you will check that out. Then on Friday, I will have takeaways. I will have observations, all the good stuff that I do every Monday, even though the Giants haven't been very good. But I will talk about the game, and we'll just see where it happens. We'll see what unfolds. A lot of questions that need to be answered. Will this game, be another embarrassment? What are the fallouts? So I'll have all that for you for Friday's show. I'll probably put that up Thursday night so you can get a jump start on it because, I'm sure there's going to be some fallout if the Giants end up losing this one and getting their doors blown off. So anyway, let's talk about something a little bit more positive. All right. Now, should the Giants bring home Bill Belichick if they decide to move on from Brian Daboll? Now, I've gone back and forth about this. I'll be honest with you. To me, it's not a slam dunk because the Giants, with how they do things, they have always had a GM be in charge of all the personnel and the head coach be in charge of the football stuff, the actual on the field stuff. So would the Giants necessarily change that structure and say to Bill Belichick, okay, you know what? Here are the keys to the franchise. You be the GM, you be the head coach, and you do what you see fit to run this organization. I don't think they would, folks. I really don't. I think if anything else, they would probably want to have a GM in place who maybe is like a pseudo GM, if you will, like a guy who, does the contracts and does all the administrative work that, maybe Belichick would want. But, here's the big thing that I wonder might work against Belichick. And I know a lot of you are going to say, it's not a big deal, but I think it is. And that is when Belichick lost Brady to the Bucks, they went to the Patriots, went to the playoffs, I think, one more time. In the meantime, they had drafted Mac Jones, I think it was. And did Mac Jones ever develop? He didn't. So if you want to be, negative in this regard, you could say, well, Belichick wasn't as potent of a coach as he was when he had Brady on the roster. You could say that he didn't really develop Mac Jones because they obviously went in a different direction. Once they mutually agreed to part and Jared Mayo came in and they got Drake May. So that would be maybe my biggest concern with Belichick. And then you also have the other thing. Does Belichick want to come here and rebuild this team for, the offense, which needs a quarterback, like you said, additional pieces on the defense, would his system fit? Which I think it would. So to me, there's a lot more questions. And I think if you're Belichick, as enticing as it would be to come home, if you will, I think you maybe want to go to a team that's a little bit further along in its build. And the Giants, I'm not so sure is it because, again, you're missing one of the most important pieces, and that's a franchise quarterback. So while I, would not mind if Bill Belichick came back, I'm not sure that that's the move the Giants will make if they move on from Brian Daboll. All right. The other thing, like I said, and why I think Brian Daboll probably will be back. You got to be patient. You can't keep cycling over new coaching staffs. You just can't do that because every time you do that, you set your franchise back. So, the Giants, you could say they're broken given how they played, but they do have a pretty solid foundation. And that foundation needs to be built up on. Is Brian Daboll the guy? I think at the end of the day, he will be. I do think he will have to make changes on the coaching staff again. Like I said, I think Shane Bowen is one and done here because it's just not a match in retrospect. If you're Daboll, you probably, or I should say if you're Joe Schoen, you probably say to Daboll, look, give up the play calling because it didn't work now, quarterback or no quarterback. And if it's not working now, just go back to the way it was in 2022 when it was working, when you were the CEO and you had somebody else calling the plays. Now will Daboll do that? I don't know. They might have to order him to do it. And then if you start ordering the head coach on what to do, you're undercutting him in a way. And what kind of effect does that have? So, that's a question they need to ask themselves. Now, somebody had asked me a question. I think it was on, I forget which social media. I'm on so many of them. But somebody said, well, what about bringing in Belichick and keeping Daboll as the offensive coordinator? Folks, that's not going to happen. I don't see Brian Daboll taking a demotion here in this organization. I mean, Kafka did it in retrospect, even though the titles were changed to make it look like a promotion. But he was still under contract. If he hadn't been, he would have told the Giants probably to take the offer and, stuff it in their Christmas stocking. So I just think, Belichick, I don't think he makes sense. As much as I think he could come in here and maybe clean some stuff up, given where this team is, I don't think he makes sense. And again, I pointed the quarterback situation and the lack of stability there and his track record in, with Mac Jones and basically life after Tom Brady. So that would be the one thing that would cause me hesitation with Belichick. But thankfully, I don't have to make those decisions. I just weigh in on them and offer my opinion. I'm sure you all have opinions, so please drop them in the comments box and let me know what you think. And speaking of which, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the little notification bell, and like the video. And if you're listening on our audio platforms, do subscribe so you don't miss an episode. All right, Giant fans, that is going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, crossover Thursday. Then on Friday, we will do the wrap up, the takeaway from the games. So, and if you don't tune in, let me just take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your food, enjoy your family. And if you're not planning on watching the game, have fun with whatever you're doing. I'll see you otherwise tomorrow, Giant fans.